The Echoes and Wuthering Waves is one of the most dynamic gearing system in any game. You are able to kill monsters in the world and use them as your slaves, as your partners, to kill even more monsters. Unfortunately, not all Echoes are created equally. There are 4 cost, 1 cost, and 3 cost Echoes, and it is a known fact that for DPS purposes, the 4 cost Echoes are significantly better. However, there are a few Echoes that are just far superior that are in the same cost range. 2 Echoes that come to mind as the Queen and Queen of Echoes are Jue and Dreamless. These 2 Echoes are extremely powerful for one reason. They do damage without the character's presence needed. The same applies to the Mech Abomination, but this particular set is already niche to begin with and is primarily used for solo DPS characters. Despite whatever buffs you get, Echoes do a significant amount of damage as a whole as well, offering really good motion value. Echoes like Jue and Dreamless can do the same damage while the character is not even on the field. Jue literally just spawns in and you can do whatever you want, and hitting a skill will actually enhance its effects, and Dreamless can be easily swap cancelled, allowing it to just wreak havoc. Havoc, get it? Now, don't get me wrong, the damage brought from the 4 costs are actually significant. They are really good, and they are worth using even if you can't swap cancel them. Most of the time. But they also take you out of the flow of combat and can feel like a burden to use. Some aren't even worth using due to the fact that they take forever to finally get out all of their attacks. I'm looking at you, Thundering Mephis. For that reason, the Tempest Mephis is normally a better option because it's much quicker and you are able to swap cancel it easier. The major point here is that certain Echoes require you to use them for the full duration to receive their buffs, and other Echoes do not. The Morning Ikes, Crownless, and Mech Abomination have the buff requirements for merely activating the Echo, while all the other Overlord Echoes require the last hit to connect before receiving the buff. To be honest, the only 4-star Echoes that were superb on release are Dreamless, the Bell, the Huron, and the Mech Abomination. The Monkey has a 2-hit attack, and if you swap cancel it, you are always going to end up in the air unless you trigger an intro or outro skill. It has to connect in order for the last hit to get the buff as well. The Myriad has a 3-hit effect that actually takes forever to get off, each hit boosting the buff. It's generally never used considering we only have one Glacio main DPS, and that's Liang, and he's actually much better with this quick swap 3-cost Echo. Now, the Morning Ikes is actually really good, but it got power crept by Jue. The Tempest Mephis is one of the better ones, but it still requires 2 hits to get the full effect, and you can only swap cancel after the 2nd hit begins. The Inferno Rider has a 3-hit combo, and again, you only get the buff on the last hit. This in particular feels really bad on a character like Chun-Li because of her quick-paced combat. Honestly, I forget to even activate this Echo when I'm doing my Chun-Li runs half the time except for when it first begins. It feels okay on a character like Jixia, and it's kind of a needed Echo for characters like Encore. When I'm playing Chun-Li, this just really takes you out of the quick-paced flow of combat. I can easily more use it on Jixia because I can swap cancel directly into it, but other than that, it feels clunky. In addition, the buff isn't really great on Jixia or Chun-Li because it buffs basic attack damage, but on Encore, it is pretty amazing getting that fusion and basic attack damage plus. Kudos to the Rider mode, however, as this is the reason why it's still on my top slot for the overworld. And finally, the cursed Thundering Mephis. 5 strikes, really? After the final hit, the character gets buffed? Really? You just missed 3 out of 5 of your hits? Really? The Impermanence Heron also slightly annoys me because it's best to be utilized when you immediately press the Echo skill and then swap. If you're late by even a second, then you end up in the air. Sometimes you're just off firing off flames and flying. Sometimes you're slamming down. I've just never been consistent with this guy, but that's probably just a skill issue on my part. The good thing about this guy though, is that you can quickly get to the enemy if they fly away from you by just holding the skill, and you're able to ignore a lot of damage and stay in the air, so that's a plus for being versatile. The downside to these Echoes that need their last hit to get the buff is that you're forced to sit idly by, and if you dodge out of them early, you're not getting that buff. This normally isn't a huge issue, but for the Echoes like the Inferno Rider, you are really sitting there for a long time. At least with like the Monkey, you're fly up in the air to get at least some invulnerability. This normally isn't a huge issue, but there are times where I had to face tank damage for the sake of the buff, or I simply perished because I wanted that buff so badly that I didn't want to face the 20-second cooldown without the buff. While echoes can be a pain to implement into your gameplay, leaving a like on this video is pretty easy, right? Go ahead and like this video as this helps keep the channel alive, and also consider subscribing as well. When you are facing the Tower of Adversity, 4-cost echoes are still the best option for damage. However, there are many options that can save you time, and if for some reason you notice that the echoes are the reason for you losing your runs due to misinputs, missing the echo, or simply it taking too long to get off the buff, then perhaps it's best to just run a 3-cost echo instead. Yes, there are many 3-cost echoes that function perfectly for quick swap gameplay that we love. Some can even counter bosses, which is a major plus. The echoes that focus on countering are more useful for holograms, since for the Tower of Adversity clears, offense is your best defense. While I mentioned 3-cost echoes, let's talk about the MVP for the best defensive echo in the game, the Excarat. You are immune. Yes, I said it, immune to damage. Let's be real though, perfect dodging and parrying is always the best option, but completely ignoring damage can really be great in a pinch. These are for only the Glacio and Havoc set, but it is an option. That's 5 seconds of immunity with about 3 seconds of downtime, so that's really impressive. There are many echoes that will fire off continuous damage while you are off field as well, such as this Electro guy, and even recovers Concerto energy. The Havoc version will actually help in combat as well, but he doesn't really offer any additional effects. Considering he's Havoc, Dreamless is always a better option. The Salamander also fires off continuous fusion damage while being swap cancelable, so this might indeed be Chun-Li's best option if you're getting frustrated with the Inferno Rider. Personally, when I swapped from the Inferno Rider to the Salamander, I was able to much more consistently beat this floor of Tower of Adversity, and I honestly can't believe how much Inferno Rider was really just ruining my run. In addition, there are many parrying echoes that will make parrying a breeze. This can be essential for stuff like Hologram, where defense is actually going to be needed and learning the boss's patterns are more valuable than damage. This guy will enter a long parrying state and then it will counterattack. And if you are hit while there's a parryable attack being used, you'll cancel that move and it'll counter the parry. This guy is good for aggressive bosses like the Morning Ikes. You have to be careful though, as timing is everything. Kinda. And you don't just want to be sitting there forever charging up the counter. The other parrying echoes are these two Herons here, being the Aereo and the Electro one. There are other echoes that you actually would counter with as well, but they normally aren't worth using since apart from the healing set, the Bell is just a damn good echo for damage mitigation. Plus, it's quick. Remember, however, it's best to learn the bosses and prioritize killing them rather than relying on echoes to counter them. This is true for Tower of Adversity. When you're doing the holograms, feel free to use whatever means necessary to beat those bosses. Also remember that you need to equip the correct echo still. You will simply move your 4-cost echo to a sub-slot. You don't want to just completely not use the 4-cost echo because that's going to be your major point of increasing your overall damage. There are major key points of note here about the good 4-cost echoes is that they are all Calamity class. That means that eventually there will be upgraded echoes for each element, and we're only in 1.1, so it'll eventually happen. Personally though, I don't want them to add even more boss drop materials, as at the rate of which we're going when we obtain characters, it's going to be pretty bad because we can only get 9 of those boss drop materials at Union level 60 per week. I would love to see some amazing Calamity echoes that liberate characters from needing clunky echoes for their rotation. Comment down below what you think about 4-cost echoes in this game. Is it even worth using a 3-cost echo instead, or would you just rather deal with the downsides of certain 4-cost echoes? Go ahead and like this video if you found it enjoyable, and also consider subscribing for more Wuthering content just like this. Until next time, Enigma out.